Hi, I'm Greg Dell here with attorney Frank Darras and attorney Stephen Jessup. And guys, I want to give people who are watching these videos, clients of ours, tips about what it takes to prove disability. Unfortunately, a lot of people think when they go on disability that it's like applying for the policy, or even if they're on claim. I told the disability company that I'm disabled, and that's it. Like, you should believe me. I have a doctor. The doctor says I'm disabled, and that should be enough. But it's not enough, unfortunately, as people who've been denied know, or people who are thinking of applying, or people who are on claim know. It's so much more than that. So we've spoken about this a lot, and we always touch on this, but this is the heart of what we do every single day, is we help to build medical support for our clients so that they can protect their benefits, which is the theme in our studio here and everything that we do. So, Stephen, I want to come to you first about what would be the first thing, or probably like your first tip in terms of this is what you should be doing to have appropriate support for your claim.
It sounds ridiculous. Go to the doctor. I mean, there's times, especially on the employer-provided policies, where people aren't feeling well. They filed the claim, they haven't even been to a doctor yet, or they saw their primary care doctor once. So if you are having issues, it's very important to make the time to get to the doctor, because the insurance companies are just going to look at the body of the medical information. So that sounds like that should be common sense, but there's a lot of people that aren't treating with doctors regularly or treating with specialists. And the insurance companies are always going to kind of look for those types of things. So making sure you're actually getting into the doctor, first and foremost, because without that, you see claims. And I just this week, a couple calls. I reviewed denial letters. The person filed a claim. The first time they saw a doctor was two months after they filed the claim. So there's no way to establish disability necessarily. So go to the doctor is the big one. And then...
Wait, don't give me another one yet.
Okay, sorry.
I don't want you to steal Frank's thunder, because I'm going to pitch something to Frank. Frank, I always say to claimants, your claim is only as good based upon how, this is not a legal term, based upon how messed up you look on paper. I mean, I just keep it plain and simple. What does that mean, and why is that so important in proving your disability?
I add to that, to the client, and say, if it's not in the chart, it didn't happen. So it's really important to help your doctor. First and foremost, what's your occupation? How do you spend your day in a happy way, doing your occupation, not your job? Example, you're a legal secretary. Your boss is an ogre, and he makes you carry 40-pound banker boxes. Well, that's not typically the work of a legal secretary. They usually carry things less than 10 pounds. So it's the occupation, not the job. Do you have a job, an occupational description, where you can explain to your doctor, 1, 2, 3, this is what I do, this is where I spend my day, these are my demands, intellectually, cognitively, physically. Your doctor has a base then to be able to look at your restrictions and limitations. I always say, Greg, these are never enough cases. You didn't treat enough. Well, gee whiz, you went to the doctor the first time, then he disabled you. Didn't know a darn thing about your work or travel or what you carry, those things.
So Frank, do you say bring an occupational description to the doctor?
I want to see the occupational description so I can see what the demand is, because it's different language. It's tricky quicksand language. Is it sedentary? Is it light? Is it medium? Is it heavy? Most of the time when I say that to even our doctor clientele, they're like, Frank, I knew that once, but I don't know what the demands are for sedentary. How many hours a day is that? Is it continuous? Sedentary means you carry less than 10 pounds, more than 10 pounds. What if you travel for your work? I mean, think about when you travel. Your suitcase weighs more than 10 pounds. My darn Toomey that I won't get rid of weighs 14 pounds before I put my socks in there. So you travel, you got a computer, you got a charger, those things get you to 20 pounds carrying. If you got a back problem, you've got limitations. Those are really important. Start there.
But when does the claimant have the conversation with the doctor? Because Stephen just talked about go to the doctor, okay? So they go to the doctor, and people unfortunately go once or twice and they file for disability. At what point does the claimant say to the doctor, by the way, I have a disability policy, and along the lines of what you're saying, here's what I used to do, here's what I can't do, do you agree or disagree? And does that show up in the chart? I just asked you 4 things, but
Sure. So first and foremost, I love it when my clients go and tell the doctor, I'm going to do everything I can to not stop working. I love the people I work with. I love the people I work around. And anything you tell me, as long as it's medically reasonable, I want to do to stay working. It's important to me, my family. I know I got to put food on the table and gas in the car, and I got to educate my kids. I want to continue to work. So that's my approach to my doctor the first time. The second time, now I'm looking at medicines. A lot of people say to me, Frank, I'm not going to do pain medication. I say, really? Do you have a stomach ulcer from the over-the-counter stuff? The carrier is going to look at your medication. They're going to look at the refills. They're going to look at how long you've been on it. Did it escalate? Did you start with, something low on the totem pole, and then you went to hydrocodone, and then you went to a higher medication? Frequency of your visits, you talked about it. How often are you going? Boy, if you got a real problem and you're trying to not be disabled, you better be in there once a month or once every 6 weeks, and you better have an escalation. And I tell my clients, make sure you have a top 10 list. Tell them about how difficult it is to bend, lift, stoop, push, pull, carry. What about sleeping? Hard for me to get to sleep, stay asleep, wake up refreshed from sleep. Hey, the medications make me loopy, or the medications affect my stomach because I've been taking so many over the counter. I don't want to get addicted. Those are 3 or 4 things that are easy. Now, what is it about your work that you can't do? I can't travel. Why? Because I can't lift. Can't carry my stuff along.
Right.
I got old luggage or whatever that is. And let's make sure that the doctor has different 5 every time. So if I go this month and I tell him, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, and I write it down on a piece of paper. Why? Because at the end of the day, you've got to help your doctor. He sees 40 patients a day. He's going to remember Greg Dell. He's going to remember Stephen Jessup and all the things that you couldn't do. No, he's got your occupational description, and he's got your top 5. That chart note comes alive. And I don't have a carrier saying to me, oh, gee, Frank, he didn't treat enough. Oh, there's no medication. Oh, all the different things. The chart note doesn't reflect it. Those things make a claim bulletproof. And you get that with help from your lawyer.
So we clearly made clear to anyone who's watching this, you got to go to the doctor, which for some people obviously got to go to the doctor, but they don't know the frequency, and I think we've touched on that. And of course the caveat to all of this is every medical condition is different. Correct. Some require a lot more, some require therapy, some don't have therapy, some are treatments for some type of, whatever, a disease you may have that isn't a therapy type issue. It's a treatment, it takes time. But you got to follow up, you got to do what the doctor does. Of course, a lot of claimants have issues. They go, Greg, I can't afford to go, what am I supposed to do? That's a difficult situation also, where you got to do it. You got to go to the ER. You got to beg the doctor. You got to go to a public hospital. You've got to go for the treatment because disability companies are going to smack you if you don't.
Well, leading into a claim, there shouldn't be an issue. If you're working, especially if it's employer provided, you have health benefits to do it. But I think, the big common theme in the policy is going to be regular and appropriate care of the doctor. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says you need to see a specialist, you don't see the specialist, that's a problem. Or you see the specialist and you don't want to follow any of the treatment, then that's going to cause issues with the insurance company about how bad it is, or are you even under the appropriate care of a doctor? And going back to what you had said too, like when do you broach the subject with the doctor about disability? That's a tough one, because if it's the first time you're seeing the doctor, it could be problems. So you do have to build some type of rapport. And I do think at some point everyone has enough of a gut instinct in the dealings with the doctor of what can help. But to Frank's effect, if you can help the doctor, it's going to make the doctor's job a lot easier. And even when it comes to when we request information for doctors, when I request attending physician statements, forms, anything, especially under an employer-provided policy, I let them know. They don't need to know, but I let them know, hey, if this ever ends up in a courtroom, you're not going to be deposed, you're not going to testify. A court would only look at your records and your opinions, and especially if it gets into problems and denials, you can say whatever you want in refuting the insurance company's doctors without worrying about a defense attorney, going. So kind of easing the mind of the doctors, because so many clients say, my doctor doesn't do disability work, which always blows my mind when it's like pain management and things of that nature. But I think part of it is because they do think, am I going to be pulled away from my practice because of this? What are these things going to be there? So the more you can help the doctor, the more the doctor, I think, is going to be receptive for completing paperwork and things of that nature.
I always tell people three things: frequency, intensity, severity. Think about your restriction and your limitation. How frequent is it? You know, what's the intensity, 1 to 10? And the severity, what have you done to try and alleviate it? Because at the end, if the carrier is looking at a claim and they see that the first chart note is to the doctor, I want to stay working as long as I can. I love the people that I work with and around. That sets a table for somebody who is not trying to be disabled.
Right.
Second, we help the doctor by framing the occupation. Third, we now look at the frequency, intensity, and severity of the treatment, and we're doing everything that's safe. You don't have to get surgery unless that surgery is simple, safe, and effective. You know, we've litigated the most famous appropriate care and regular care cases in the country, and it started with a chiropractor. It started with a podiatrist who said, hey, look, I can't operate because I've got carpal tunnel. Well, carpal tunnel, folks, today, if you've got carpal tunnel, you can go about a year conservatively. You get physical therapy, you wear the splints and the braces, and then it's time for carpal tunnel, which is simple, safe, and generally effective. They go in there, it's a 6-minute procedure. It takes less time to put you down anesthesia-wise than it does to open the little tunnel to be able to get feelings in your hand. Doctor said, well, gee whiz, I can't do that because I've got a heart condition. Great. We framed it differently, but the carrier said that's a simple, safe, and effective surgery. Need to have it. There's case law on it. Elbow. Transition, moving the elbow where people have elbow pain and problems. The carriers moved from the fingers up to the elbow, and there's a published decision that says that elbow transposition is simple, safe, and effective. Neck surgery? No, they haven't got there. Back surgery? Haven't got there. Podiatric surgery? Haven't got there, but they're always looking at what's appropriate. And what's appropriate for them is a denial. Because that way they get to enjoy your rich premiums, don't have to pay a darn dime, and they reframe the regular care versus appropriate care to their advantage. So always, always, always take a look at the policy, give it to your lawyer so that you understand what the definition is that you're working with.
Right. Well, that was a great discussion because a lot of people do call and say, do I have to have surgery? Do I not? And we were also, trying to get into the tips of what people can do to help solidify their claim. And we try to keep these videos somewhat brief as much as we can, but we could talk for hours about these. So we're going to do some other videos where we're going to talk about the people who now have been denied. Because a lot of people watch this video and they go, wow, I wish I would have called you guys beforehand, or I wish I would have spoken to you in the inception of my claim so that I could have done all of these things. So I want to encourage people to watch our other videos where we talk about what do I do now that I've been denied? How do I build my claim? How do I get objective evidence of disability? And we're going to go into all of those things on other videos that we've done and for other people to watch that are out there. So if you're someone who has a disability insurance claim, feel free to reach out to Stephen, Frank, myself. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you, and we'll always provide you with an initial free phone consultation.